G'day everyone and welcome back to Digging Deeper Ag Chats with Al. I'm really excited to kick off 2026 with you. We've just finished our first full calendar year of podcasts and I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's listened, shared an episode, sent a message or stopped me for a chat. I genuinely appreciate it. This year we're aiming to bring you even more great guests with plenty of practical conversations you can take straight back to your own operation. We'll be featuring more local producers too. People right here in our region who are doing good things, having a crack, who've got great stories worth sharing. I'm also pleased to say that we've got some regular voices returning. Chelsea from Herd Solutions will be joining us on a monthly basis with veterinary updates and timely animal health advice. And Morgs from Elders is back as well, committed to a monthly livestock market update to help us make sense of what's happening and what it might mean on farm. So whether you're listening in the ute, on the tractor or in the yards, welcome back. I'm glad you're here and I hope you enjoy what we've got coming in 2026. Welcome everyone to Digging Deeper. On this week's episode we actually have a two-part series. The first part is Brett Tonkins talking about fertiliser, some of the issues surrounding current fertiliser prices, availability, what fertiliser can actually do for your property, a very quick rundown for about 15-20 minutes. Then we're going to be swinging over to Simon Faulkner, who is a farmer himself in the Geelong area. He's done a lot of work on soil amelioration, which is one of the projects here at the Gippsland Agricultural Group. He talks about some of the pros and some of the difficulties with doing soil amelioration on your property, how it can increase yields, and some of the soil building possibilities you can do with it. It's a good episode this week, so enjoy.
Naturalised Gippslander, only been here 10 years, mate. Just a few things. We'll just run through a bit of a taking stock where we're at with a few different inputs we have on the farm and just run through a couple other options. So we do have a Q&A panel after this where we've got Ross, Matt, ask any of his questions. Absolutely. So just running through a couple of scenarios and then by all means, if you want to ask a question, do so, but could be some experts later on to chat to as well. Okay, so current state of play in Gippsland. Varies like it does every year, but East Gippsland had some early rain again, encouraging conditions for sowing into autumn. It's now dried off a bit. Some of that east coast rain's died off, and as our westerly winds have come back, it's become a bit drier and a bit marginal in some areas of East Gippsland. The MID, some really good rain through late Feb, early March. Limited rainfall since. And there's been a bit of worry about Glen Maggie, but if you're looking at 10-year averages and even last year, it's still well up on what it has been. So at this stage, encouraging for what it might look like next irrigation season for the irrigators just up the road. West Gippsland, it's been a fantastic autumn break. We had a really dry summer. Mid to late Feb was dry, the storms started coming in, and then some really good widespread rain through March and into April. And established pastures that got through the summer looking really good. New pastures have had plenty of warmth in the soil. Even obviously this week we got a lot of low to mid 20s, so great conditions for growing grass. And South Gippsland's been a bit patchy, so there's some areas, especially getting more towards Western Port or the peninsula, there's got some good rain, and then some coastal areas and a bit further east, especially as you're getting towards Yarram, much more marginal. But generally South Gippsland can have some really good winter pasture growth with overnight temperatures not getting as low as what we get further inland. So the current fertiliser outlook, these are figures over the last couple of weeks. Just some rough inclusive prices. So DAP, MAP over $1,800 a tonne including, Super's over $750 a tonne including. So if we're just looking at pricing on per kilo of phosphorus, MAP slightly cheaper than Super and a fair bit cheaper than DAP per kilo of P. That can fluctuate a bit, so if you are using a prescription NPKS blend, sometimes you'll be better off using DAP, sometimes MAP or sometimes Super Potash might come out better, just depending on what you need of course. MOP, $9.26 a tonne, so it's about $1.85 per kilo of K. And then if we're putting our Super and Potash blends, 3-in-1 at $250 is about $220 a hectare, 2-in-1 at $250, similar price. So
you say that's landed locally price?
Including GST? They're including GST. these are bulker bag prices, I'm pretty sure, and these are spread prices.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the high price increase at the moment compared to last year has been driven more by single super. MOP and SOP haven't gone up by as much in the last couple of months, and that's mostly because production's completely out of the Middle East, where unfortunately that's where we get most of our APs and urea, or at least a portion of APs and urea in Australia. And urea production relies heavily on cheap gas, and of course freight channels being opened up where there is cheap gas. So that's jumped a hell of a lot as well. You're looking over $1,800 a tonne spread. So that means if you're going on 100 kilos of urea, you're up at $180 a hectare, and instead of being sort of a booster price, you're there nearly neck and neck with a 3-in-1 or 2-in-1. So very expensive using granular nitrogen at the moment. But probably the biggest issue that's seeing on farm in the last couple of weeks in particular has actually been sourcing products. So there's been a few businesses that haven't been able to source single super at all, or urea's run out very quickly. And that's been driven more from the large wholesalers and importers deciding conditions are what they are. We think we're going to be down on planting of broadacre, and that's always going to make that's going to have more weight in their value, in their decision making, compared to pasture, because there's just so many hundreds of thousands of hectares of cropping. And we look at this, so this is from Rabobank. Tony was hoping to be here today but couldn't, but passed this on, so thanks Tony at Rabo. You know, it's not unique, the situation we're in. It's been, I guess the prolonged nature of it at the moment is an issue, but it's not unprecedented. And you know, hopefully, as we see diesel's just started to drop in the last few days, hopefully it means that there can be some correction in price moving forward. And global consumption of fertiliser, it's expected globally to retract a bit. As we can see, nitrogen and phosphates are really pushing the price more than anything, and a slight upwards tick in MOP and SOP is expected to go up a bit in the next pricing round. So APs and urea generally get nearly like fuel prices, I suppose. It does change a lot, like week to week it can fluctuate a fair bit. Your potash generally is a bit flatter and might change every couple of months or every 6 months. So generally price increases or drops with potash take a little bit longer to come into effect. And this affordability index is just saying that in general globally, nitrogen in particular and phosphates as well are effectively unaffordable for the return that they'll give you. Yeah.
At the moment, do you know if the production is still at the same level, but it's just the distribution is the problem?
Not sure. I'd say in areas of the Middle East, because the boats that are full with urea and AP sitting in the Strait, they're probably pulled back.
Because they've got nowhere to put it.
Yeah, the other thing to consider as well is some countries through Southeast Asia, India do it a lot as well, China do a lot as well. They stock take sometimes up to 12 months of what they need. So there can be bottlenecks just because they're holding on to what they think they might use, and like how we've been able to, today or yesterday, I think we got a bit more urea out of Indonesia. They've probably just made a call that they're not going to be able to use it this year. So,
I suppose what my questions aren't behind is if production is staying the same, but distribution's dropped off, are we going to have a glut in the future that's...
And I guess we won't know until ships are trading, and I don't share your optimism, Alistair, unfortunately. Yeah, it'd be lovely if it came off. No,
that doesn't happen.
Yeah, so this graph here, so the green and the blue, the real price, the actual prices you pay. And this is historical, this goes back 100 years. Obviously, with inflation as well, we're always going to be paying more. But these pink and orange ones are showing that when you compare them with the inflation, that fuel was a big issue a long time ago. So in the last, in recent years, this is obviously unprecedented. what we're going through with petrol and diesel at the moment, but when supply was an issue to Australia in previous years, it was something that we did encounter. So obviously putting that with this graph, there's some really hard decisions to make, not only what we're putting on our paddocks, but when we're doing it and how long we're wanting our tractors running or paying for contractors. So something that I have encountered a fair bit of, and I'm sure the guys from Nutrien as well, you guys as farmers want to know, if I'm going to be going over my paddock, what's the maximum I can do with one pass so that at least my diesel costs are staying as low as possible. So what are the alternatives? So if we bring it back, what does fertiliser actually do? So we have three aspects of soil fertility. There's physical, things like texture, structure, porosity, compaction, water infiltration. You've got biological soil fertility, so organic matter, microorganisms, things like worms, even things that burrow into the ground, like someone mentioned before about cockchafer bugs, echidnas would probably come into that as well. But also other stuff like protozoa and things we can't see. And then there's chemical fertility. So that's what you get on your soil test, your pH, nutrient availability, those types of things, and the ability for the soil to store nutrients. So conventional fertilisers like your super, potash, urea, they're only going to directly influence this chemical fertility. So for instance, soil test comes back, you've got low phosphorus, you've got low sulphur, whack on some single super, and those two particular deficiencies you'll be able to help address. Conventional fertilisers can influence indirectly these two aspects. So if you're going to grow more grass by putting on single super, you're going to get more root mass. That's going to, well, it should start to help improve physical fertility. And synthetic fertilisers will change soil biota. They're not going to reduce microbial populations. They'll change the ratio of microbial populations more than anything. And in fact, if you're growing more grass, you will be building your total soil biology. So they'll change the soil biota generally towards a more bacterial dominant flora compared to a fungal dominant flora, which you get more with composts or I guess if you weren't fertilising at all. So how do we improve all three aspects and get an economic return when doing so? So just a couple of scenarios. One, manures and composts. So obviously they've been used hundreds of years, if not longer, to improve yields and give structure, especially to sandy soils. So the science doesn't change just because technology's progressed. There's still a lot of scenarios where manures and composts are something that you should be utilising. There's some situations where they're not needed. It's about working out what's inhibiting growth on your farm. Chook manure is probably the most widely used, primarily because it's easiest to get. Manure is stockpiled by cleaning out production sheds. Generally, it's spaced out close to agricultural areas as well, which is great for us. On-farm composting and commercial compost products are becoming increasingly popular again. Like Simon mentioned before, around using urban sources of compost as well. So there's a lot of ways that governments are trying to recycle. It's giving us more variety in what we can actually use. And these products, being a natural product, can vary widely in their quality. So if you are looking to go down this route of using a compost or a manure, just make sure you're getting it batch tested. Getting a chook manure where they tested it 2 years ago, no point using that. It's giving you a very, very rough guide. And yeah, for the sake of maybe a couple $100 a test, certainly a good idea just to know what you're actually putting down on your farm. So why are these actually effective? Well, they're addressing all three aspects of soil fertility. You're putting nutrient on, you're adding soil organic matter and usually microbes in that as well, and you're adding bulk density and helping with some of those physical characteristics. So how do the finances stack up? So chook manure, $50 to $60 per cubic metre spread, and it's around 1.5 metres to a tonne around about. So,
talking egg stuff or?
Pardon?
Is that?
Broiler.
The answer to the tonne?
No, it's a bit less than that. It's about 1.5. The more heavily it's composted, it should drop more to that. Yep. So broiler source chicken litter, which is probably most common in Gippsland, conservatively about 1% P and 1.5% K. That can vary. You can get up to sort of 2% P and 3% K. But just for working through some numbers here, we'll go conservative. So if I'm putting on 4 cubic metres or 2 2/3 a tonne per hectare, you're putting on 26 kilos of P, that should be 40 kilos of K, equivalent to 80 kilos of MOP. So if we're going to just be applying 26 kilos of P and 40 kilos of K using super and potash, that's coming out at, call it $300 a hectare. If we're doing it by applying 4 cubic metres of chook manure, it's coming out 200 to 240 depending on what your spread price is. So, a few years ago might have been flipped the other way where it was more expensive to do so, but certainly with what's happening now with fertiliser prices and availability, the finances are stacking up quite well. Another option, got foliar liquids and other alternatives. So within this breadth of products, you've got synthetics, you've got organics, some that are a bit of both available. They do vary, not vary. They vary widely in their efficacy. And it's important to understand what you're trying to achieve before you use something. So just because bloke up the road used it and it was fantastic doesn't mean it's going to work well for you. So again, knowing what you're looking to get out of it and why you wanted to use a product is really important. Some of these products are produced in Australia, so availability is generally better than commodity type fertilisers that we no longer produce. And there's also granular compound fertilisers and other products which can help address specific deficiencies such as traces. So locally we've got Omnia, just down that way. I've got my bearings wrong, that way I reckon, at Morwell. So, and there's some other companies as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a foliar or liquid to look to play in this unconventional space, I suppose, with some other fertilising options. So what's a scenario that might actually be viable if you're looking to change from a single super urea type setup? So start with a soil test. Guessing is super expensive, amplified by what's happening now with our fertiliser and diesel prices. So chook manure or other composts can be a great alternative to a super and potash application in autumn or a pasture booster type product in spring. The results can be enhanced using inoculants and biological products, because remember that it's not the chook manure directly that's doing all the hard work, it's the microbes that you're boosting and feeding by adding chook manure that's helping you grow the grass. So inoculating chook manure with the right type of microbes can also help with how well it works. And then coming in with a foliar application of nitrogen and other nutrients, you might need some traces, you might be low in copper and moly, maybe you need some magnesium to help with that. With your energy in your pasture as well. So there's more nutrients required to grow grass than just your NPKs, and you need to consider what your biggest 2 or 3 constraints are and address them. Don't just think that going old trusty with super potash urea is going to solve your problems. You still need to do what's best for the soil, start with a soil test, remove those constraints, and that's going to give you the best return on investment. So a bang for buck scenario, at the moment, using those prices we spoke about earlier, 3-in-1, these are separate applications, but let's say we're going on with 3-in-1, we're getting our autumn break, we want to come in about this time of year before it gets too cold. We're going with 80 kilos a hectare of urea. We've put on 37 kilos of N, 17 kilos of phosphorus, 32 kilos of potassium. It's cost us $364 a hectare. If we go on with 4 cubes of chook manure, it's cost us $240 a hectare, put on 26 kilos of P, 40 kilos of K. It's put about 30 kilos of N on in total, and around a third of that will be available in the first 12 months. It's a slow release form of nitrogen with our chook manure. So let's say we're going to get about 10 kilos of N in that first growing season. If we want to come out to around the same cost, $360 a hectare, that gives us $120 a hectare to play with foliar and traces, humates, biology, whatever is needed, what our soil test or what our tissue tests are saying we're deficient in. That's a pretty good budget to address any constraints you have that we can go on with a liquid or a foliar. That's right. So there's all these other effects that I was mentioning before around physical and biological fertility that we're not taking into account here. So you can see we're coming in with, that's around 50% higher again, phosphorus. We're up around 25% higher with our potassium. We're also getting traces on. We're getting foliar nitrogen on top of the nitrogen we're getting in chook manure. And this is all coming at the same cost. So our ability to solve more issues with some of these prescription foliars or prescription custom fertiliser blends and using something like chook manure as that substrate for the microbes, in our current scenario, there's not a financial penalty in doing so. But I would expect this type of approach to be growing more grass because we're able to take care of more constraints. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, that was Brett with all the fertiliser information. Hopefully you got something worthwhile out of that. Now we're going to actually swing over to Simon Faulkner and Trevor Caithness talking about the soil amelioration projects we've been doing.
So here we are this afternoon, and we're just looking at a project which has been unlocking the Red Gum Plains soil capacity, and we've got Simon Faulkner has been with us today, and yes, welcome Simon, and it's great to have had you involved. Give us a little bit of an outline of perhaps some of these MLA projects and how you see them fit with the industry.
It's terrific that the MLA have come on board in a project like this. It's perhaps a little bit left field for MLA, but that's the beauty of it. It's all about growing more fodder for animals, and yeah, the more fodder we can grow, the more red meat we can produce as well. So it's really exciting. I mean, we're looking at soils in this project, and in my mind, soils are the building blocks of agriculture, and if we don't get our soils right, then our production systems aren't going to be right. So it's great to be involved in this project, and you guys to hopefully getting some great learnings from it.
Simon, could you give us a basic rundown of what this project actually looked like, and yes, and how it's rolled out over the last 3 years?
Yep. Basically, we're looking at enhancing our subsoils. Farmers are really good at dealing with the top 10 centimetres of their properties, but we're not so good at looking at the subsoils. And I like to look at it as growing, rather than expanding out and buying the neighbour or moving to a different district. I like to think about it as improving what we've got and growing the farm down rather than out. And that's what this project's all about, is enhancing our subsoils, which have got quite a few constraints. And if we can turn those into topsoil at a reasonable cost, then our production system will look pretty favourable.
So this trial's been probably spread over a geographic area of probably 100 kilometres from one end to the other. What have you gleaned as you've looked at some of these soils across this Red Gum Plains type area?
Yeah, quite unique, this Gippsland area. It's I'm based over in southwest Victoria, near Geelong, and our soils are very different. Our climate's very different. One of the things that struck me is the variability in the soils and the production systems here in Gippsland. There's some real challenges. Inherently, the soils look okay, but there's some production issues. For the amount of rainfall you guys receive and the climate you've got, you perhaps should be growing a bit more fodder and putting that into growing more red meat, more sheep and cattle. So that's the challenge that this project's got. And if we can increase the productivity of our subsoils, then that's going to flow through into the whole farm production.
You've just mentioned subsoil amelioration. Just give us a little bit of a rundown on just what a subsoil amelioration looks like.
the challenge is our subsoils are inherently lacking in carbon, organic carbon, and nutrient, and as a consequence, it's not a good place for roots to be growing, and that's why we talk about hostile. It's hostile to root development, and if we haven't got roots down there, we can't utilise the moisture that's there, and plants like moisture. They grow better when they've got plenty of moisture. So the key to subsoil amelioration is unlocking the moisture in the clay and make it usable for plants so they can thrive and produce really well. So subsoil amelioration is about initially in this process, it's putting a target, an amendment down at depth, just in that AB horizon of the soil profile, and then getting the roots down to that area, and then the roots actually do the heavy lifting. Lots of people think it's the nutrient in the amendment that's the target. What we're trying to do is con the roots to get down there, so then the biology associated with root development can do the work on the soil. Get the natural cycles of cycling nutrient through the soil profile, aggregating the particles together. So that's the secret. As I said, pretty simplistic, but that's the way I see it.
So as a producer that's been involved, that probably starts to lead me down. We perhaps didn't see a great deal of results as far as yield results in the first 12 months, 18 months, but we're starting to see them now 2-3 years later. Is that purely just a factor of what you've been talking about as far as roots getting into that zone and creating a different environment?
Look, it is. It can be variable, and yes, you can put the target in position, but if you haven't got enough moisture in the system, then the roots don't actively seek out that target, and so they don't do the heavy lifting. So there's no real change to the production system. The plant's growing in the topsoil, the top 10 centimetres. What we've got to get it to do is to dig deeper, go down to 20-30 centimetres. And that you've had some variable seasons in Gippsland over the last 3 years, and some sites have performed well year in, year out, and that's where we need to look, is to marry up what the climatic conditions were at those sites that performed well, opposed to the ones that haven't performed quite as well, and see if there's a environmental or a climatic issue there. The other thing we need to look at is biology. Are some soils or has the process kicked more biology into gear? Is there something in the soil that's restricting fungi and bacteria development, or enhancing a negative biological biological factor? So we need to tease those sorts of questions out.
So when most of us are considering our properties, do you think there is a greater benefit from actually trying to do these activities on our better soil types or our poorer soil types?
Experience has told me that the low-hanging fruit might be the spot to look. When we do trial work and demonstration work, we tend to go to the farms and the farms that produce really well, and they're better paddocks, because we think that's where we're going to get a really good bang for our buck. But in this situation, experience has told me that maybe we should go to those poor performing paddocks and really lift them. It's a really complex question. There's more to it than just fixing the subsoil. If we change the environment that plants are growing, then our agronomy needs to change further down the track. If one of the things that we're seeing with subsoil amelioration is we extend the green leaf period of our pastures and crops, but our agronomy on those pastures and crops hasn't changed. So there's more to the question than just fixing the subsoil, and how we graze those crops. are we inhibiting, by grazing, having a poor grazing system, are we inhibiting root development, which stops the plant's roots getting down to the amendment chamber and making those soil changes in the system. That could well be the case. So it's really complex, and that's the beauty of projects like this, is we can tease those sorts of questions out on farm in proper farming systems.
So you've worked in this space for quite a few years now. What sort of yield responses are you starting to see in some of those sites where you did early work when you first started these projects?
Across the board, the rule of thumb is you see an increase of 30% if we're talking grain yields. In the pasture world, in the grazing system, we're seeing a 50% increase in biomass. And it's how you utilise that biomass that's really important. What's the most efficient way of turning that into red meat or wool, and utilising it without compromising the actual process of subsoil amelioration, not pruning the roots. So the consequence of pruning the roots is it doesn't get down to the amendment chamber, so you don't get the changes in soil characteristics. So it's complex.
Do you see this as potentially one of the levers that farmers may have to actually get the next step up in productivity across our southern zones?
Yeah, I think it is, especially if we're looking at the lower performing areas of our farms. We've all got good parts of our farm that we know. We've got favourite paddocks that we know if we want to finish some lambs on, that's the paddock they go to. Or if you want a lamb twinning ewes down, then that's the paddock. It's the lower performing paddocks are where we run a few wethers or some dry cows. If we could suddenly bring them up to the same production level of our better paddocks, then it opens up a whole lot of opportunities. And so that's pretty exciting, especially when you look at things like OptiWeigh machines, where you can actually measure the production of your animals in real time and not wait for 6 weeks before you weigh them the next time. And you can actually see, on this paddock, it is performing better than or as well as I'd hoped. This paddock's not. We need to move them on. So that opens the opportunity to getting your livestock off earlier, hit premium markets, and have more feed in a tight year at the end of the year.
Where do you perceive we're going to go as an industry with some of this research that's coming through in the future, Simon?
Where to next? We've got to answer some of the questions. A lot of research work, we end up with more questions than answers, which is the frustrating bit. But we're lucky. There's lots of ways of monitoring what we're doing and looking at the science, and that gives us a direction of where we should head. For example, in this subsoiling project in the Red Gum Plains, then we can look, is biology, soil biology, is it having an effect on whether subsoiling works or not? We can measure soil biology. That's the sort of thing that we need to look at and measure those things that we can, and then tick the box. Yes, it is the reason why the process is working, or no, it's not. And it might guide us to work. Well, we need to inoculate the amendment with an inoculant that promotes the biology that we need to unlock nutrient, or something along those lines. So having science and on-farm measurement and assessment of productivity is absolutely ideal. Science in isolation won't answer the question. We need the farmer input and the real life farmer stuff to make sense of it all.
And it really does show the importance of MLA funding these types of projects, doesn't it? Because it's on the ground, it's happening, on real farms, not in research stations somewhere.
You couldn't be, that's exactly right. We need it on farm, because that's every farm is different, and within every farm things are different. So a research station yes, it can do the basic science, and you've got to do that. But how you get it out into the marketplace is really important.
Yeah.
And that's the other good thing about doing projects on farm is farmers look over the fence.
Yeah.
They run into their mates at the footy and say, hey, Trevor, what you doing in that paddock? I've noticed a difference. And you can have that discussion.
Yeah.
So your extension is done over a beer at the pub.
That's right. Well, on behalf of Gippsland farmers, I want to just thank you, Simon. I want to thank the MLA. This is a fantastic project. It's still got a couple of years to go, and I'm sure we're going to see some outstanding results out the other end. So thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Trevor.
A big thank you for tuning in today. And remember, if you have a question about today's episode or a topic you'd like us to cover, reach out to one of our many platforms and join the conversation. We're here because of your passion and commitment to agriculture. Together, we can build a stronger farming future.
This podcast is made possible by the Future Drought Fund Regional Drought Resilience Planning Program, co-funded by the Victorian and Australian governments.